All right, welcome everybody. It's bracket time. If you're a bracket geek or a volleyball fanatic, it's been a great day. Welcome to the first VBadrenaline.com bracket breakdown show. I'm Darren Tipton, and you're going to be joined by quite a bit of our staff tonight. But starting out, Katie Myers, who's Maryland and Minnesota former D1 athlete, and then Abby as well, who speaks on college volleyball year-round. And so excited to have them. Ladies, initial thoughts just before we even dive into the brackets. What are your initial thoughts on Selection Sunday?
I guess I'll go first. I was definitely surprised about, teams that made the tournament versus teams that didn't. I would say surprised about quite a few Sunbelt teams making the tournament. I thought that was pretty interesting. SEC had 8 teams, and then of course Florida getting that last seed, the 16 seed. So those were some of my biggest surprises.
Yeah, Abby, I'm definitely going to have to echo the Sunbelt teams for sure. I mean, 4 teams from the Sunbelt is huge, especially Texas State being on the bubble, getting that bump in. I mean, it's the most they've had, since a while. But I think Florida being in at number 16 is an interesting pick by the committee. But shout out to the first timers making the tournament with Wofford, Coppin State, and Omaha. That is huge, not only for the growth of volleyball, but for their programs as well.
And I think one thing I want to touch on, what are your guys' thoughts? We put this on one of our polls. What are your guys' thoughts on conference championships, end of season conference championships, and not in college basketball? I believe every conference does that now. Volleyball, it seems like it's about half. What are your guys' thoughts on the postseason automatic bid?
I'm into it, especially if there's a tournament. I think that kind of shakes things up, especially if the regular season champion doesn't get the conference tournament champion. They can be kind of bid stealers in that, kind of makes things interesting and kind of knocks some bubble teams off.
Yes, I believe that happened with the Sunbelt region, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I definitely agree. The conference tournament is just super exciting. I played Division II volleyball, so the conference tournament was literally everything. We had to win to be able to make it to the tournament. So it's very exciting.
And I think as you would talk with some of the more Power 5 schools, the argument coaches would have there is that takes away from guaranteed matches and their strength of schedule. And so having a conference tournament at the end, they can't schedule as many in the preseason. So that also is one thing, I guess, as a general volleyball fan, it is so cool to watch those top programs battle right away in August, September. So that would be, I think, the debate on you would maybe have to lose those matches, and something maybe we could ask the coaches as well as we bring them on. But any surprises other than we talked a little bit about Florida? Any surprises as far as where somebody maybe was seated or a region who got stuck in a certain region? Anything that jumped out at either of you guys, Abby?
I would say definitely, I would say Missouri getting an 8 seed was a little bit of a surprise. I know quite a few of the SEC teams did make the tournament, but also the fact that a lot of them did get seeded as well was sort of a surprise to me. And then also I would say just some teams not making the tournament. I would say Kansas State being one of them was another big surprise.
Right, which I think was a team that was maybe the last one out 2 years ago, the COVID year, I believe, with the COVID tournament. So tough break for them and a new staff there. Katie, what about you? Any surprises in seeding or who got matched up?
Yeah, I know there was a battle for that last top 4 seed, and it was kind of a flip of a coin between Pitt and Louisville, but you have the ACC matchup there in that region, which if seeds hold, that'll be an interesting matchup for the Final Four. But I noticed just in all the regions, there's a lot of same conference heavy right there. A lot of Big Ten in the Wisconsin region with them, Penn State and Purdue. I mean, you got Kansas in there too, which they're a little spicy team, which I love to see. ACC heavy in a couple of them. But I'm surprised that SFA also was seated where they were. Should be an interesting matchup with TCU in that region as well, but it'll be fun to see things shake out.
Yeah, and according to the ESPN, first of all, great to see the selection show on ESPN where it should have been for years, but I just think that speaks to the growth. Also, I'm maybe more of a bracket nerd than I even am a volleyball fan right now. I love brackets and matchups and bubbles and automatic bids and who's hot, who's not, those types of things. It was so great on social media today, going on multiple different media, just volleyball media sites in general, and hearing their comments, hearing predictions. I really kind of jumped in maybe 3 years ago, and it's exponentially bigger than it was then. A long way to go, but a great start having it on ESPN and an hour-long selection show, which it deserves. I thought it was great. They actually worked in some interviews with athletes, and I have a couple, and they just happen to be our guests. But one, I think, Katie, what you had touched on was the conference heavy. And with that, let's move in right now. I don't think anybody wants to listen to us. They want to listen to our guests. And so with that, and one of those regions that is a little bit conference heavy with SEC teams, let's bring on our first guest, Coach Craig Skinner, national championship coach. I believe he's SEC Coach of the Year. And Coach, let's bring you on. And thanks for joining us. Can you hear us okay? Coach, can you hear us? Coach, one more time. Can you hear me? Well, we get that. We'll try and figure out Coach's mic. Let's bring on Let's bring on the region. Let's just take a look at the region. It's actually the Nebraska region that'll be in Lincoln. And let's see if we can add that as we try and work with Coach and talk about that with 1 and 2 going on. Abby, just talk about the breakdown, first of all, with the number 1 overall seed, Nebraska.
Yeah, so Nebraska, no surprise that they were the number 1 seed. And yeah, it's super interesting region. Like I said, or like we had mentioned before, very SEC heavy. I think it's going to be very interesting, especially with some key matchups. Florida State, TCU in the first round to then play potentially Arkansas. I think that's going to be a really interesting sub-region.
Katie, what about you with that region initial thoughts?
I mean, I see a lot of physical teams in here. Georgia Tech matching up with Florida can be a really good matchup, especially at the pin. Kentucky and Baylor is an interesting matchup, with Baylor being super physical and Kentucky having some great defense too. So that can be an exciting matchup to look forward to. TCU and Arkansas catches my eye. Melanie Parra at TCU is a stud. And then Jill Gillian at Arkansas, just explosive and carries the team as an emotional leader. So I'm excited.
Okay. Coach Skinner, we have you on. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, I'm in Western South Dakota. You're in Kentucky. Our internet was a little bit delayed there. So welcome, bud, to the show. Congratulations. Let's talk about your Wildcats a little bit before we talk about your draw here. And just first of all, I just want to ask you, the win streak coming in, what clicked? What has been better these last 16 matches to drive you guys to your 7th SEC title?
Probably the biggest thing is just our balance offensively, and then our defense has been catching up to our offense. I mean, early on we were thriving in the middle and on the right side with Rutherford and Teeler and Elise Getzinger, and now the left sides have been really producing in the last month. So I think we've become a lot more difficult to defend, and then also our block and defense is picked up, and which allows our transition offense to be involved. So I think we're not necessarily having to rely on any one particular aspect of our game, but able to win a lot of different ways right now.
Katie, question for Coach?
Yeah. Hey, Coach. Talk about 8 SEC teams making it into the tournament this year. Again, such a heavy load. Just talk about the strength of the conference and how it's helped you guys.
Yeah, our league just keeps getting better, and we have better coaches in the league and better players, and getting wins in the pre-conference, and even Georgia, for example, who's 10-8 in the conference, has beaten Georgia Tech. They beat Arkansas. I mean, they've had a lot of good quality wins, and so each night throughout the conference season, we've had to be really dialed and prepared and locked in, and I think everyone, other team and coach can say that too. So you definitely feel like you've been prepared and saw a lot of different styles of play in our league also. So I don't think there's going to be much of a surprise depending on the style that some of the tournament teams will put up against the SEC teams.
Abby, how about you?
Hi, Coach. So, like Katie was saying, there's 8 SEC teams who made the tournament, but 4 of them are actually in your region. So, are you excited about the potential of possibly having a rematch with one of your SEC teams?
I mean, it's, I think the cool part about being in the tournament is you get to play other teams from other conferences, and there's more surprises, I guess, from our end and their end. And, usually when you play your conference teams, you have a pretty good idea what the talent level is and what style that they're going to bring at you, and who the point scorers are under pressure. And, but I mean, you just really have to be prepared for anything. I think everyone asks, "Oh, what do you think you're going to be seated? Where are you going to go?" And as soon as you start predicting and trying to, project what the path is going to be, you get lost. And so whether we play Arkansas or whether we play Wofford or Baylor or James Madison, I mean, it really doesn't matter. You have to be your best all the time.
Coach, what do you think coming in with this being a year of really transition the program with the facility upgrade and playing matches at Rupp, and now this to be able to host the large crowd that you had yesterday against Florida? What does it mean to have that first match and potentially that second match at home?
It's awesome. And, like I said, it's a great opportunity for our fans to see our team again. And, our first 8 matches of the season, we played 1 at home. And so, super challenging for us and obviously the quality of teams we played early. But, to be able to respond and do what we did in the conference and the last, month and a half of the season was special. And you continue to see our crowds grow and grow, and the more and more people asking and knowing our players and, who we've played and what our schedule looks like. It's been a pretty awesome situation.
Yeah, and we'll let you go on this. When that bracket came out, not sure, it's been a couple of years, but your previous coaching stop, I believe, was in Lincoln, Nebraska, correct?
Yes, it was.
So would that be exciting for you for a chance to go back home and play Nebraska if that situation arises in a couple of weeks?
Come on, Darren. You know me. I got to play Wofford on Thursday, and then potentially the winner of Baylor and James Madison. So if we're lucky enough to advance, I'm sure there'll be a restaurant or two that might want to see if they still have good food. But we certainly aren't going to look past Wofford on Thursday. You know that.
I do know that, but I got to ask, and I look at those. Plus, it'll be a rematch from earlier this year. But congrats again on another title. I know you got a bunch of these to do tonight, so we're going to let you roll and appreciate your classy program and good luck with round 1. Okay, bud.
All right, guys, take care. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, right. Coach Skinner, Kentucky national title just a couple years ago. A lot of people forget that with his team, and 7 SEC titles in a row is pretty impressive. So they're a team that, you know, we talk about early on, 4-7, I believe, in non-conference. And Abby, I don't know what you've been able to watch, but what's really changed with Kentucky non-conference to their streak in the SEC?
Well, I would definitely say that Kentucky had one of the tougher non-conference schedules, and I think quite a lot of teams we see start like 0-7 or whatever, and then they have this comeback. And a lot of the times is they do have a heavy load on their non-conference schedule, which I think is super important. And then, yeah, they lost to Tennessee, I think September 24th, and then haven't lost since. So yeah, they're definitely on a hot streak. They just swept Arkansas and Florida, who are both ranked. So they're definitely on the up and up. And yeah, they can do some damage in this tournament. I definitely think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when you look down the line. I know we're not going to get a lot of those answers tonight because you just, as a coach or an athlete, you are instructed not to talk about that. We might have to call everybody back in a week and ask them about that. But as we move, Zach, let's move to the next region and an interesting region that I think if we matched up, this will be taking place in Pittsburgh. This to me is the most interesting of all regions, again, based on a potential matchup, in a couple weeks. And as we look, and there we bring it up there, the Pittsburgh Regional, number 1 seed, Pitt Panthers, ACC champions. Number 2, a very familiar foe there as well. Not sure that happened, but that would be great to see with Louisville as the number 2 seed. And then a team I think my feeling is on a lot of people's minds right now, because a week ago they were definitely a potential bubble team, but then based on their recent performance, a team that might be a little scary, and that's Minnesota. Katie, initial thoughts on the Pittsburgh Regional?
This is an intense region. I mean, you have a lot of heavy hitters in here, a lot of great defense, and I think a lot of silent killers when it comes to newer faces or newer names to the NCAA tournament. I mean, let's start with Western Michigan. Their setter, Logan Case, she is second in Division I right now in assists per set, and just below Emma Grom at Kentucky. Yeah. So, I mean, that is pretty studly, if you ask me. And you look on the other side of the bracket with Washington State. They had a really hot streak, ranked in the top 5, and kind of fell off a little bit. But I think they have a really good sub-region to get out of and possibly face Pitt in the Elite 8. But before Pitt focuses on getting there, they got to face USC and Schuyler Field. So it's an interesting region, that is for sure.
To me, Abby, there's a lot of big names in this region that are on the tip of everybody's tongue. You set aside Nebraska. There's some really big names in this region. We already touched on Schuyler Fields.
Yeah, I would definitely say Minnesota's definitely catching my eye. Them not being seeded, I think people will say, oh, well, they're not seeded. They've got to play Utah State. Could be playing Creighton. But I just think they are on a really big hot streak right now. Almost took Nebraska to 5 sets. And it's so wild because I think a lot of what the committee based their seedings off of was matchups against Minnesota, which it's kind of hard because, they started super strong, then fell off a little bit, and now they're picking back up. So it's super hard to determine where teams should be seeded based on teams that do kind of have that flow like that.
Well, and one of the coaches we're going to talk with and hear from an athlete here in just a little bit, also in this region, is Creighton, who beat Minnesota earlier in the year and won another, Big East title regular season and conference. We'll talk to Coach Rosen in a little bit. But that, I mean, you want to talk about very interesting second round matchup for me. That was the one that kind of jumped out to me of all 4 regions. But with that, again, enough of us talking on here. The people demand to hear guests, and so we'll give them that. Let's bring in some special guests from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they are the number 1 seeds, and they are the champs, and they also have a little bit of December success. So from Pittsburgh, Coach Patrone and a pretty decent freshman and Tori Stafford. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, first of all, Coach, initial thoughts and you're around the facility and knowing, did you have a pretty good idea you might be that last 1 seed? Was it totally up in the air? What were your thoughts heading into the selection show?
Well, I was, quite frankly, I was pretty nervous because you never really know until you see your name there. And we were a top seed 2 years ago. We actually got a call from the NCAA a couple hours ahead of time. This time there was nothing. So we were just thought we had a good chance, but we're really grateful we got a chance to get that number 1 seed.
Yeah, before I pass it off, Tori, you're coming in, great freshman season for you, first of all, but you're coming into this veteran team who's been to 2 Final Fours. How do you adjust on the fly and playing with some veterans? Do they help you out getting you and the freshmen prepared for this run because they know what to expect?
Yeah, I feel like all season I've had a numerous trust from my teammates and the coaches. So I feel like I've been comfortable to play in these big moments. And we've had, tough season with Louisville and like all the other Oregon. We've had big games. So I feel like at this point right now going into the tournament, I'm really confident and I have some trust from my teammates and coaches. So I'm excited.
Abby, questions for the Panthers?
So like Darren was saying, so you all are coming off of a 5-set win against Louisville, a share of the ACC title, and now you're a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Talk to me just about the overall energy you all have right now and how you're going to take this into the tournament.
Well, that region started when people excited. We have someone selected in the 10,000 fans in the Peterson Event Center when we played Louisville, and then make us even more excited to be number 1 seed because the city of Pittsburgh is really excited about our team and our players, and we're riding the support they have for us and the work that we've been putting in every day in the gym.
Yeah, the crowd was crazy in the Pete when we had the game against Louisville, so we're excited to be hosting again and having their support.
Katie, what do you have for the Panthers?
Yeah, hey, Coach. Talk about Pitt's culture in general. I mean, we see Pittsburgh at the top of the AVCA coaches poll, RPIs, beating top teams here and there. Pitt has grown so much over the years. So what does it take to maintain greatness?
Was that a question for me or Tori?
Both of you.
I feel like if you ask either one of us, we're going to say that we have a good culture of family. And I know that I came here for a reason of I'm from California and it's far. And I wanted a home away from home, and I've gotten it here. So I feel like we all genuinely love each other, and it's been a good ride.
Yeah, this is my 10th season at Pitt, and our goal every year obviously is to do really well in the tournament, and this year and the past few years to win a national championship. But our real goal is to just have a special group and a special experience, because you ask athletes when they look back on their careers, they think about the moments that are outside of the court. Even more so than the ones on. And so we really take seriously our relationships, and everyone says they're like a family, but that's not always true. And so we really are like we're a family here, and you can see it whenever you see us play or when you're around us.
I have a question. First of all, with the last few episodes of the Fish Report, is he still going to be standing in the river fishing, or is he going to have to put on a wetsuit? It's a little chillier in Pittsburgh right now.
Well, luckily the river doesn't freeze over, but otherwise we'd have him ice skating. But he was pretty brave that day going out there, because if he fell in, that's not a place you want to fall in, So they were like, "Let's go swimming." It's like, no, thanks, you got it. So.
I do love your media and especially your social media after matches. But let me ask you, I want to end this before we ask you quick about your region. the breakdown. Talk about the adversity and just the grit of this team. And I was at the Kentucky match earlier, and Bree went down early, and just her, her positivity with the team, and something that really could have set you guys back and really just next athlete up. Talk about the heart of this team to overcome that, and what she's done to help, even though she's been injured all year.
I feel like we've had, so Bree went down, and then as well as Rachel Jepson, our other middle. I feel like we are really deep with our team. We have Emma, who came in, and Shia. So I feel like their support off the court, they've been like another coach. I know Bree's always talking to me about blocking or just anything in general. I feel like they've been well a part of our team, and really positive and enjoying the experience with us as well.
Yeah, they've done just about as good a job as I've ever seen as being supporters for the team when they're not out. And we knew when Bree committed to us that we would have our deepest and most talented team ever. And to lose a player like her is really tough. And, but the questions we were asking ourselves is like, okay, will our depth be like a blessing or a curse? Because when you have so many good players on your team, there could be comparison or jealousy. And we've just done a really good job of not doing that. We've been all in. And if you get a chance to see our video of Bree's reaction and Rachel's reaction whenever we got announced as a 1 seed, that says it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's, one more question as you guys look, and we'll get you on your way. But taking a look at that region, and I know, what's it going to be like again to be at home, that home court advantage, and what are your guys' overall thoughts of the Pittsburgh Regional?
Like I said, I feel like being home is really special. As a freshman, this is like my first tournament, and we'll have all of like the fans on our side. So I'm really excited for that. What was that?
Just what thoughts on the matchup?
And then I think the matchups are great. First round, I'm playing against my sister at Coppin State, and this is their first time.
Well, thanks for that bit of trivia.
Yeah. This is their first time making the tournament, so they have a great season. And I'm just excited to play, against her for the first time. So
yeah, I'm glad I'm not her family right now watching this match.
I know.
On Friday night.
I know they're like, sure, Tori, come on to Kenya, come on, Tori.
Well, you just have her call Mrs. Kelsey, and Mama Kelsey can show them how to make a dual jersey
right.
for your mom. But
we actually have 4 sets of sisters in the tournament this year.
It's awesome.
Okay, 4 of our sisters also playing in the tournament, so that's a little fun fact.
One other fact, what we addressed just the big names in this, and what do you think? It's a loaded. I mean, some of the great storylines I think of this tournament are in your region. Talked about Minnesota, Creighton coming off. We're going to talk to Coach Rosen, off maybe getting upset in the first round last year. They got a revenge, and then you in Louisville. Not to mention USC. This is a deep region. What are your thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, the first thing that sticks out to me is when you think of the best outside hitters in the country, a lot of them are in this region. Okay, and you can go down all of the seeds. They have incredible outside hitters, not to mention the 2 on our team and the one sitting next to me. But man, it's going to be like loaded, and it's a tough region. It's certainly what feels like one of the toughest. But when we had to make a Final Four going through BYU, Florida, and Wisconsin last year, we feel like, hey, if you can get through that run, you're totally prepared for the Final Four. And then I'll speak to it. I'm not going to be like Craig Skinner and avoid it. We of course take every opponent seriously. And in terms of the Louisville matchup, if it were to happen, the only thing I think about is just a bummer both of us couldn't be in the Final Four if that happens. They're 2 Final Four teams. They're 2 of the elite teams in the country, and so that's just where I see it in terms of like how this bracket could potentially play out.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that makes for great ratings, I think, in a definitely a full house, I would assume. And like Anna DeBeer said earlier, rivalries. Everybody loves rivalries, but it would have been cool to see that in Tampa if y'all get there. But guys, we're gonna let you go, and thank you so much for your time. And Coach, I've seen you at the last 2 practice days. I want you to remember that I was like the only weird media guy that sat at those. When this gets really big, Okay, I was there watching you, but hopefully we'll get to see you in a couple weeks. And Tori, awesome freshman season. Keep it up for a few more matches. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Take care, guys. Coach Patrone and Tori Safford. Katie, talk about just their freshman impact. They are deep, but a couple freshmen that have done amazing things for them.
Yeah, I think Tori and Olivia Babcock have been electric on the pins. They're so much fun to watch. I know I watched them when I was coaching club in the spring. I was like, wow, who the heck are these girls? And to see them starting at Pitt, I mean, speaks to their talent and the trust that the coaches have in them as well. And you touched on it. Stepping into a veteran team and starting like that is not easy, but they have done a great job with that feat.
Yeah, absolutely. And Abby, the attendance there in the ACC, which was really interesting, is all this focus on Pitt, Louisville, and then Florida State ends up being co-champion.
Yeah, so a lot, and it's really interesting. And a lot of that has to do with conferences and whether you played teams once or twice. So FSU played Louisville and Pitt only once, whereas other teams in the conference would have to play twice. Louisville had to play Pitt. They had to play each other twice. So that kind of makes the rankings overall a little bit different. And I do think that the committee did take that in mind further down in the ACC standings as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, let's move on. Our next set of guests is here, and we talked about how loaded this region is. We have some Blue Jays in the house, and so I want to welcome in assistant coach Brian Rosen, and then Kiana Schmidt, who is Big East Conference Tournament MVP. So, Kiana, coach, thank you for taking time on this crazy day.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Kiana, let's talk to you first. I get to talk to Coach all the time, but this is my first time chatting with you. Kiana, talk about your role and your huge tournament and just the senior depth on your squad.
Yeah, definitely. I think that throughout this whole season, but especially in the tournament, Kendra, our setter, we've really just connected. We worked on it a lot this spring and throughout the season. So I think that was going really well for us. And I think, blockers on the other side of the net have difficult choices to make when I have like Nora Sis or Ava Martin on the outside, just depending, like trying to send blockers different ways. And Kendra does a really good job of seeing that. So she puts us in really good situations, which makes my job easy and lots of fun. So
absolutely. Katie, question for Kiana first.
Yeah, I mean, Kiana, just talking about the team in general, you guys haven't lost since October 6th against Marquette, and you came back on November 5th and beat them, so I'm sure that had to feel pretty sweet. Kind of just talk about the team's improvement throughout the season and moving into the tournament.
Yeah, I feel like over the last couple of weeks, one of the things that we focused on was just being like extra gritty on defense. So like for me, that means like getting up really good blocks for defenders to play around or getting good block touches. And then in the backcourt, just like our defense getting lots of balls up. And I feel like we learned that in the Marquette game, that we just needed to be like all out for every point. And I think that's really helped us down the stretch here.
Abby.
Now it seems like you guys had like a great, well-balanced non-conference schedule. How do you think those wins against Big Ten powerhouses like Purdue and Minnesota helped prepare you all for conference play and receive the seeding that you all have in the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think our coaches do like a great job of giving us like a really good non-con, like you said, like a really good balance of teams. That I think, they always talk about like our RPI and like what's going to help us the most there to help us get the seed. But then also, playing some Big Ten teams that give us the confidence, just, not to look at the name on someone's jersey, to just step out on the court and play our volleyball, and that it can be good enough to beat whoever's on the other side of the net. So
that's awesome, Coach. Let's bring you up, and first of all, congratulations to you and Coach Bernthal Booth on another conference championship. But what were your initial thoughts when you guys saw the bracket in your region?
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty confident that if we won the Big East tournament, which we were able to do this weekend, that we'd have a good shot at hosting. We knew we were kind of on that bubble between a 3 or a 4, so it was great to see just the culmination of all of our work this season get us that 3 seed versus the 4, because kind of like you guys mentioned, we played one of the toughest non-conference schedules in the country. Over a 3-week period, we went to Minnesota, to Purdue, to Nebraska, and we're able to win in some pretty hostile environments, and went to Omaha and played Iowa State there. So it was really nice to see all of those things kind of paying off for us. And then something a lot of people don't know, the Big East, based on RPI, is the 6th best league in the country this year. And I think that kind of goes under the radar, is how strong the Big East was this year. I mean, Marquette's a top 25 team every year. St. John's was one of those first 4 teams out, and they're good enough to make some noise in this tournament as well. So, yeah, it was a really competitive league this year.
I want to ask quick before I let Katie and Abby jump in, and this could be for Kiana or Coach. Last year getting knocked off early, it's something that has fueled your fire. Is it something you guys talk about now, or is that in the past? Last year, or does it give you a little extra motivation heading into this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it does. I feel like just ever since January when we got back, like it's just kind of fueled us that like we know we want more. I mean, it never comes down to one thing, but I feel like the last couple of years we have had a couple of injuries at unfortunate times. So we're just really well working to stay healthy, and really just keep working hard to go as long as we can.
We're bubble wrap until Friday.
That's right. Abby, question for Coach.
So obviously, you all actually beat Minnesota earlier in the season in 5 sets. What are your thoughts on the potential rematch?
Yeah, I think we both know that we're both really good teams. I think we're both not the same teams that we were at that time either. I know at that time North Sis wasn't playing for us, and they were struggling at that time, and they've gotten, so much better since that match. I mean, they're good enough to be at least a 2 seed, and to be a 3, I'm sure that's going to motivate them to play well. I think we all watched them play Nebraska a couple days ago. I mean, they're good enough to stay with everyone. They got the reigning Big Ten Player of the Year, Libero of the Year, Shaftmaster setting, Grote on there. I mean, they're a really good team, and I know that they'll respect all of their opponents, and we'll do the same. And so I think it's interesting to play a team that we've played before, but with it going to 5, we both know that it would be a really competitive match. But I mean, our eyes are on Colgate right now. I know that Utah State is a 17 RPI team, so no one's looking past them either.
Sounds good, and we'll end with this. And this is for Coach. I mean, you guys live in the state of volleyball. Nebraska's very proud about that. So you see the hype all the time. What's it like for you seeing the rest of the country kind of catch up now with hyping up this tournament like it was today? And you guys kind of see this all year round.
Yeah, and I think Kiana can definitely touch on this too. I've coached in a lot of places and a lot of parts of the country, and I've always heard, Nebraska's where volleyball is. Nebraska's where volleyball is, and you just don't know until you get here, and you feel like how big it is when you're just walking around and people know who you are. They sell our jerseys at random stores downtown, and when there's a volleyball match, people show up. I mean, we're always top 15 in attendance in the country. Nebraska's the same. Obviously, like all 3 Division I teams in Nebraska are dancing in the tournament. So it's really high. In Division II, I think all of their teams are going. I think there's 5 NAIA schools that are going. We generally have some of the top high school programs in the country. Young girls in this state want to play volleyball, and that's awesome. And if you look at our roster, it's pretty Midwest heavy. We don't have to go very far to find really talented volleyball players who are passionate about the sport, and we're pumped to be able to host, because it just gives our fans another opportunity to fill our stands and cheer us on.
That's awesome, guys. We appreciate it. We definitely appreciate your time. And Yana, you rally those troops and get them ready for next weekend. And hopefully we have some comments, and we need another scouting report in a week or so. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. Take care, Coach Rosen, Kiana Schmidt from Creighton Blue Jays. And since we have her, Coach, we'll move on. And before we break down the next region, let's bring in our next head coach. And this is someone I'm excited. I got to meet him on the recruiting circuit last year, but hadn't really followed his program a ton. You guys had more. I've loved their last couple of recruiting classes, and then getting to watch them on the court this year. It's been a joy. So Coach Matt Ulmer from Oregon, Coach. Well, I don't know if it's dark there yet or not, but thanks for joining us.
It is Pacific Northwest. It happens early. So thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to, it was cool. I saw one of your social media pictures of your watch party, and to have that huge screen on the court. One thing we know about Oregon, facility wise, uniform sets, everything, you guys do things first class there.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, no, our student athletes have a great experience, and just really thankful to work at a university that cares so much about them and does everything they can for their benefit.
So, Katie, question for Coach off the bat.
Hey, Coach.
Hey.
Just about the two big impact transfers you got this offseason with Gabby Gonzalez and Kara McGee. They've added a ton to your team, especially your offense. So talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, well, we graduated Brooke Nunaviller, who was a first-team All-American for us, and I think one of the most impactful players in college volleyball in recent memory, just in how she controlled the game with her ball control, let alone her offense. But we didn't know who was really going to take that over, for us. And so Gabby Gonzalez coming in, and she's been one of the best passers in the country, regardless of position. She's handled a really heavy load in serve receive for us, and her defense has been really good. So that was huge for us. She's done a great job handling all the junk. I think she's had offensive records for her career this year. She's had some really big games for us against some of the best competition, and just what a wonderful human being. We had 3 transfers this year, along with Onia Fegbu, who's redshirting for us, but the 3 of them were all captains where they came from, and had so much leadership in their locker rooms at their respective schools. So now just to bring that into an already old group that we've had has really just been it's been fun to coach, because it's like a pro team. So with Kara and Gabby, that's where their sights are as soon as the season is over, is they want to go play professionally, and they'll both be great professionals for whoever gets them. But Gabby's just done a lot of things for us that way. And then Kara, what a great blocker she is. Her size, but her volleyball IQ, again, an experience. So many great block touches for us. And then offensively, we're just trying to get her involved as much as we can. We're pretty balanced on offense. So where I think in the past, maybe at Baylor, she got fed the ball a little bit more out of necessity. Here, if they forget about her, she's gonna make you pay. But again, just great human beings, and really fortunate, that they both want to become Ducks with their COVID year that they had, and they made a great impact for us.
That's good. Abby, for Coach.
Hi, Coach. So
Hey.
obviously, after an amazing run last year and upsetting Nebraska in the Sweet 16, what do you think is your team's biggest strength this year that can help you all make a deep run this year as well?
Well, I hope it's consistency. I think we do everything pretty well. Defensively, we're going to set an Oregon record this year for defense opponent hitting percentage. Where I think that's a big growth for us from last year. We were a good defensive team last year, but over 50 points better this year, or 40 to 50 points better, which is great. Offensively, Hannah Pukas is one of the best setters in the country. She's running a great show for us. We're in like 283. So that part has been great. We can serve and pass with the best teams, play great defense. The block is much bigger for us this year than last year. But I think it's just, like I said, kind of a pro group. So they just show up, and I'm just hopeful that they're really excited, for playoffs. Hopefully their interests are very piqued, and, they're wanting to bring their best here at the end. And I think, that's what we were able to do last year. We played some really good volleyball at the end of the year. And so you saw that Nebraska match was a great match. Could have gone either way, but we got that one. The Louisville could have gone either way, and they got that one. But just really high quality volleyball, in those matches. And I just hope our team, wants it that bad that we'll play every point, like it's our last, and we'll see where that takes us.
Hey, Coach, let's talk about that postseason, and you talk about peaking at the right time. What are some other things you preach to your athletes to be successful, in in this one and done or, losing your done situation? What are some things you preach, this next week heading into the tournament?
Hopefully it's something that I preach all the time. And it's just always giving your best, give your best effort every day in practice, in the classroom, in the locker room, in your relationships. If we do that, then you're going to have some, a lot of consistency and a lot of growth throughout the year. And that's why hopefully we're always playing our best at the end, is because we're just working on getting better every day and being our best self. So that's the same thing with the tournament. You can't be any better than your best. So here we are, we got a great opportunity, to go out, and we get a host again for the second year in a row, which we've never been able to do as a program. And so I think that's pretty neat. And hopefully that's a standard that our players, have set and that they'll want to continue to do as we move forward as a program. That we get a host at Matthew Knight Arena, and we've had the best crowd on the West Coast. And I know they'll be really excited and active again for this weekend. We'll just go out and we'll do everything that we can do to be successful. And hopefully that leads us on to Madison next week.
That's awesome. Let's actually take a look right now at your region and up there in the 26-5 record. What were your initial thoughts? We've asked each coach on this. What were your initial thoughts when you saw your region come out?
It's about what I thought. I thought we would be anywhere from 4 to 6 seed, depending upon what they wanted to do with Louisville and Pitt. I think there was a case we could have been 4. Definitely could have seen us 5 or 6. So not really surprised there. I figured that would lead us to Madison if we were 6, which is where they were leaning, and that's what happened. I figured Hawaii might come our way after the Big West, and then you got to assume there's a lot of SEC and Big 12 schools. So, I thought we'd have an SEC, Big 12, and Hawaii, something like that in our region. So pretty close. I'm trying to learn more about Southeastern Louisiana State, and they seem like a great serving team. They're putting up crazy numbers. And they're having a ton of success. So I think that'll be a really fun first round matchup for us. And to play a new program, I love that about the NCAA tournament, when you play teams that you don't normally get to play. And I know our team will be excited for that. And one of their assistant coaches is a former Beach assistant coach at Oregon. So we got an Oregon tie there. So I know he's excited to come back, Colin. And, we're looking forward to that. But when you get to this time of year, you're only playing good teams. You're only playing teams that are going to stretch you. And again, hopefully we've done enough in our preseason scheduling and our non-conference to get us ready. And then the Pac-12 was the strongest rated conference this year. And so we know we got that every weekend. So hopefully we're battle tested and we're ready to go.
Yeah. Katie, a question for Coach, either on the region or comments on the region.
Yeah, I mean, Coach, you see a lot of Big Ten teams here in this region, and with Oregon moving to the Big Ten next year. Are you shocked by the amount of Big Ten teams in this region, and how are you feeling about the death of the Pac-12?
It's so hard to know how things are going to lay out when it comes, to the bracket. So I think you just take it one game at a time, for us. So, Big Ten generally has a lot of really good playoff teams in it, so you're going to find them along the way. Pretty much every year, I feel like we're playing a Big Ten school at some point in the postseason. So that's not surprising that if we're good enough, we'll get the chance to do that this year. And how do I feel about, what was that second part?
The death of the Pac-12.
The death of the Pac-12? Yeah. It's very strange. It was weird all year playing at schools that we might not be going back to for a very long time. That was strange because you have your traditions, you have your places that you go, you have your hotels you stay at, you have your routines on the road. And we made really great friends with all the coaching staffs and even facilities people at different locations. And you just get to know the players, even though they're on opposing teams and their families. So, it's really strange having some of those connections probably be broken quite a bit. A lot of the people at the Pac-12 office, we are really close with and we think super highly of. And so for them, that's really hard. So I don't know how everything will shake out with everybody. For us moving forward, the Big Ten is a great volleyball conference. Generally, it's been the Big Ten of the Pac-12 every year is the best volleyball conference in the country. And now you're comboing 4 of our teams with great, prestige or tradition that are now going to be joining the Big Ten already. That's, already doing great things. So from a volleyball fan perspective, I think it's really exciting, to be able to go play, so many great programs. And I haven't been to a lot of these gyms, even as being a Midwest guy myself. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's good. Abby, how about you for coach or comment on the region?
Yeah, like Katie was saying, only five Big Ten teams made the tournament, with 3 of them being in this region. So I thought that was very interesting. Also did think that your your guys' sub-region was interesting with having teams like Iowa State and Southeastern Louisiana from a geographical standpoint. What are your sort of thoughts on that, I guess?
Well, I think that's normal for us and like Washington State, for example. If we get to host, no one's drivable. Very rarely do we have drivable teams that can come within 400 miles of our school. So then when you look at how the bracket normally shakes out, you got teams that need to travel, and so they'll find their way to us. So I know they try not to go 3 time zones, but for some reason, or generally that we still get someone that's 3 time zones away coming to our place. Last year, Arkansas, made the trip. And now we have, Hawaii, the other side of it. So we have anywhere from Louisiana to Hawaii, right, in our little pod, with Iowa in the middle. So that's kind of normal for us. So we're used to that a little bit more eclectic bunch, where Stanford can get a little bit more regional because they'll have some teams within 400 miles that can drive. So that's kind of normally how it works out for us. So used to that.
It's awesome. Well, Coach, we're gonna let you go. I do want to say that as soon as it's done, I'm gonna let you catch your breath, and then I'm gonna call you back, and I want to talk about recruiting with you because I love your class. I love what you're doing. I want to talk about recruiting and if that might change going to the new conference. But you've been so awesome with your time. It was a pleasure meeting you last off season. Great to see your team having this success, and I know people aren't excited to see Oregon anymore because of the upsets you guys have had. You're known for that. And here's to another great run for you guys. All right.
Let's do it again. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Awesome, Matt. You take care.
Thanks.
Matt Ulmer, head coach of the Oregon Ducks, and pulled one of the bigger upsets last year. And a few years back, they knocked off a number 1 seed to move on, been to a couple of Elite Eights. I know they'd like to take that next step. But before we go on, let's bring in, let's add Madison Mori to the conversation. And Madison just finished up her playing career at University of Virginia, and so she knows a lot of these athletes, a lot of these teams. And then everybody, let's take a deeper dive into this region and talk about maybe some of the top players or some of the big names that people might see. And Madison, any of these teams familiar with you or anybody you're excited to see, put you on the spot right away in the Madison Regional?
Yeah, the one team I'm so excited to see play is Miami. I think that they've had a bunch of upsets this year, and I think that they have the potential. I mean, they were in the tournament last year as well, and I think they're still a growing program with a top setter, some top attackers that are just carrying this team. And I'm really excited to see what they do in this tournament. And I think that it's a potential upset.
Absolutely. Katie, what about you? Maybe a couple big names to watch or somebody you'll really be focusing on, maybe on an individual level rather than a team.
Yeah, a couple people from Purdue stick out to me. They are a pretty young team, but I think Taylor Anderson has been doing great as the setter there. And I think Chloe Chicoine is probably one of the front runners for freshman of the year, depending how her tournament comes about. But she is just an explosive player and quite the emotional leader for them as well. We talked about Miami. I think Grace Lopez is just must-see TV for sure. Hopping over to Penn State, I mean, other than headliners of Mac Pedraza and Jess Murzik, I think Cameron Hanna has been so fun to watch, and I'm excited to see her tournament run too.
Absolutely. Abby, how about you?
Yeah, this is a really fun regional. The more I look at it, I'm like, such great talent. Like Madison was saying, Miami I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. Savannah Vaught can run an offense like it's nobody's business. I would also say Purdue is really standing out to me, especially with the potential of playing someone like Oregon. I think that they're very similar in a way with being outside hitter heavy. So I think that could be a potential matchup, but Purdue still has to play Marquette possibly. So yeah. A lot of volleyball still.
Marquette's kind of that program that has steadily been on the rise. Last year, getting their taste, of the tournament, battles in the Big East with Creighton, and they knocked off Creighton one time this year. So they're exciting. I like the Kansas team and what Kansas has been able to do this year in the Big 12. What are your guys' thoughts on them?
I also think that they had a great run in the tournament last year. I think they also had some big upsets that were super exciting to watch. And I just remember continuously saying to myself, I need to watch the Kansas games. So they've been super exciting and such a fun team to watch in the tournament. So I think they'll be fun again this year.
Yeah, and then I suppose we would be doing justice if we didn't touch on the number 1 seed in the region, which is Wisconsin, and gave Nebraska their first loss in a pretty dominating performance the other night. Great match, but to sweep Nebraska, had that great 5-set match with them. They are definitely back and loaded with talent. Abby, what do you think about the Badgers?
Yeah, like you said, they just have so much depth, and they run a 6-2 offense, which not a lot of teams do. But when you have 6 phenomenal hitters, you can't have any of them sit out. You have to have them all play. So, yeah, I think they've definitely turned it around. Obviously, with Anna Smrek being injured, they had to make some shuffling. And it wasn't even almost as much as Anna Smrek as it was having Julia Orzel adjust from libero to outside hitter, and Temi moving over to right side. So definitely a lot of shuffling with that injury. But now that Anna Smrek is back, they're back to what their normal lineup is. And yeah, that sweep of Nebraska was just icing on the cake for them in terms of getting into the tournament and potentially making a run.
Yeah, and locking up that number 1 seed for sure. Very good chance they would have had it anyways, but that definitely secured it. And Katie, being a former Big Ten alumni, you've made the trip. Definite home court advantage for the Badgers as long as they're going to stay around in this tournament.
Oh, absolutely. My last career match was the Elite 8 when we played at the Fieldhouse a couple years ago, and you cannot hear yourself think. You cannot hear your teammates talking to you if they're 2 feet away. That place just erupts, and they love Wisconsin volleyball. I love it for our sport, but didn't love it when I was a gopher. So.
I know. Rivalries, right? Rivalries are the what makes college athletics so special. And I love that we're talking more about rivalries now with volleyball, right? Basketball, football, always been big. And now those coming to the forefront, I think it's what makes fans passionate. It makes alumni for years after their playing days have a little bitter taste in their mouth when they hear a certain school. And Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Louisville, Pitt, like we're talking, they could match up. Yeah, we'd love it in the Final Four, but an Elite 8 matchup, something like that. Rivalries are great for college sports, and they're good as well. Let's take a look. Let's move in before we bring in our guest of honor here in just a little bit. Let's take a look at the final region, and or actually, we are at our final region, aren't we? The Stanford region. I'm sorry, and we forget. This is interesting because a team to me that really, after a couple maybe mid-season losses, it's like all of a sudden nobody talked about them, and that's the defending national champs, Texas, right? And Katie, what about that? As you start us off, as we look at that, I just don't think Texas has really been talked about a lot, and they have a very veteran team.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, very different team from last year with the loss of Logan Eggleston and Sage as their setter and Zoe Fleck. I mean, that team was just unstoppable at every single level, but they returned Madison Skinner, Emma Halter at libero, Asia O'Neal. I mean, you can't neglect to talk about her and her presence. I mean, they had a couple mid-season slips, but I think they're really finding their stride. They looked really good against Texas Tech the other night.
Yeah, absolutely. But Abby, why don't you touch on the number 1 seed? And this is a team, because I go to bed so early, I don't get to watch a lot of Stanford matches. So tell us about the Cardinal.
I actually make a joke. So my sister and I will take turns getting like a free Fubo, free trial to get Pac-12 Network to watch Stanford, and then we like immediately cancel it. So I have seen Stanford play a few times this season, and they're very just strong. They seem just like everything just seems so seamless for them when they play. They had one hiccup against Arizona State, and it was not pretty, but besides that, they have pretty much dominated the Pac-12 and a tough, pretty strong Pac-12 conference as well. Very, very balanced in terms of outsides in their pins. Elia Rubin is just a rock for them, both in the front row and back row. And then, of course, Kendall Kipp on the right side as well. And then Cami Minor is definitely one of my favorite setters in college volleyball. So yes, very excited to watch them. And this regional is very, very interesting.
And we'll come back and break it down and give our actual picks in a second. But Madison, give us maybe a couple names in this region. First of all, I mean, it's like the SEC, the NCAA couldn't wait for the rivalry next year in the SEC, so they just had to put A&M and Texas. You know, we talk about rivalries. Yeah, let's just open the tournament with that one. But what are a couple names in this region that you want to see?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what UGA does. I mean, being from Georgia, I've always been a UGA fan. So you have Sophie Fisher, who just got all SEC Player of the Year. I mean, incredible season for her. And then, of course, you have Casey Evans again on the outside, who's just been a powerhouse for them over her last 4 years. So I'm really excited to see what this UGA team does. I mean, once again, so many upsets during the season, a couple sweeps of some top big teams. And I just think that they work so hard and they prove themselves every year. So I'm really excited to see what UGA does. And then also a bunch of different SEC teams, like Tennessee had a very strong schedule this year, had a very strong couple wins as well. And then Texas A&M as well. I mean, it's super exciting. And I can't wait to see what those three SEC teams do.
I think with this region, you have some programs on the rise. You know, Arizona State, coming from where they had been to the run that they went on, and like you said, knocking off Stanford, and you know, their record 26-6, and then I guess we have 2 of the 4 SEC coaches of the year in this region, with Tennessee having a breakout year, A&M with the new staff. A lot of interesting, I think, teams on the rise in this region that we'll talk a little more about. But with that, we're going to let Abby and Katie take a little bit of a break, and we are going to bring on our next guest, and someone I'm really excited to talk to. Madison lined this up. So this is already a 2-time All-American, already a 2-time All Big Ten selection, and part of the number 1 ranked team in the country. And we are lucky to be joined by everything Lexi Rodriguez. So Lexi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, that's the first thing. Because I knew you'd make my day with that dang giggle every time I've seen it. So I'm glad you like that all the time. That is awesome. But thank you for your time. I can't imagine, and I'll let Madison break in. I can't imagine how many interviews have you been asked to do, or the Nebraska players today? Like, give us a ballpark.
Just in general, or today?
Yeah, I mean, the media is crazy with you guys 24/7. People don't realize that, I don't think.
Oh, yeah. It's all the time. We have them every week after wins, losses. They had people travel down to Wisconsin to interview us even after we lost. So, yeah, it's all the time.
That's good. Well, yeah, and there was a picture on one of the socials about the media row at Wisconsin. It was jam-packed for Nebraska, and then the day after it was they called it a coat hanger because there was nobody there. And but yeah, you guys definitely have a following, but it's the state of volleyball. So enough about me. I want you two to talk. You guys talk bro stuff here, and I'm just going to sit back and take notes. Madison, you take over.
Yeah, I mean, Lexi, you guys have had such an impressive season, setting records, playing in Memorial. Talk a little bit about, your team's motivation for this year. What you had such great runs in the past. Like, what's been your motivation for this season so far?
I think honestly, from the start of the year, we knew that everyone was gonna just make comments about how young we were and about how we lost some big seniors that played big roles on the team for the past 3-4 years. And I think that was kind of our motivation, just knowing that no one knows what to expect from this team. So there's no expectations. We just get to play volleyball every weekend. And I mean, we've had that mindset since the first weekend. And I think we've been doing that just ever since, just going out there, playing as a team, showing what this team could do, even when we're playing 6 new people and 5 of them as freshmen.
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome.
What was the run like? Did it seem like more and more pressure started to build up throughout the year? I know they talked about you guys being a loose group, but did it add up building up to that Wisconsin match?
We honestly didn't start talking about it until about 2 weeks ago, a week or 2 ago. And I feel like, we never knew if we were going to lose. We were just taking it one game at a time. And then we kind of got past our really heavy part of the schedule. We were playing top 25 teams in the Big Ten. And once we did, we were like, wow, we're still undefeated. We haven't lost yet. And I think that's when the pressure kind of started to kick in a little bit. Even when people aren't talking about it, it's still always there. And I feel like it's something you feel going into every match when it gets later into the season. And especially this past weekend when it's a week before the tournament starts, I feel like there definitely was some pressure just from the season that we've had so far.
You talked a little bit about being so young and having 4 freshmen on your team. Talk a little bit about what postseason looks like. How are you, as you're an upperclassman now, so being able to guide them through what this postseason looks like. What are y'all gonna do? What are you gonna talk about, and how are you gonna motivate them?
Yeah, I think that with this class, they're extremely special just because of how competitive they are. And there's going to be conversations, and obviously Merritt and I as captains are going to try and kind of help guide the way and just show them the ropes. But I think at the end of the day, with the season that all of them have had, I think they've had a lot of experience and a lot of exposure to these big matches. So I think they're more than prepared, and they've built up a lot of confidence to kind of help them get through this tournament.
Lexi, let me ask, because we looked at on the Nebraska volleyball website and your resume, awards and honors. One of the things I thought was cool was the Tom Osborne, the 2-time Tom Osborne was Citizen Award. Yeah. Talk about how generous you are with your time and how demanding that has to be for you. But so cool that you truly do a lot more than just be an amazing volleyball player.
Yeah, huge shout out to everyone at Nebraska, just because everyone in life skills and even in academics, they're always trying to get us to do more. And even with the impact we have as athletes and as Nebraska volleyball players, I think they're always encouraging us to kind of reach out to little kids and try and just connect with people in the community. And they do a great job of setting up these opportunities. But I think now more than ever, it's just so important to put volleyball and put women's sports on this pedestal that it deserves to be on. And so any opportunity I get to kind of connect with people or just to promote the sport of volleyball, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to try and do what I can.
Yeah. Is there a team outside the Big Ten that you look at and, whether it's in your region or whatever, where you're like, whoa, they're scary good? Who would be a team or two outside your conference that you've seen and you're like, wow, they're legit?
Well, I think obviously the other teams in the top four, you have Stanford and Pitt, and we played Stanford earlier, and it was a battle, and I mean that was back in September, so both teams have grown so much, and I mean they're a team that you don't want to mess with. So I think they're definitely a team that can be scary. And then outside of that, I would say Oregon is a team that I feel like people are kind of underestimating a little bit. I feel like they've had a great year, and playing them last year, I just think they're a great team. So I would say those two.
That's good. Madison?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty crazy bracket, you know, and so it's always super exciting to see who's going to match up with who and what it's going to come down to, you know, possibly being able to play Mizzou and then either Florida, Georgia Tech, any of those teams. What are you looking forward to most?
I would say just playing teams outside of our conference. In years past, I know we've had to play some other Big Ten teams as we've gotten farther down the road. And so I'm really looking forward to play teams like Florida or Georgia Tech, which are two teams that I have yet to play in my college career. And even Mizzou, like just all these teams from different conferences. I'm super excited to kind of go up against them and just to see a different conference. It's always fun to get a different look.
Couple more, then we'll let you go here. But last night on the post game, Becca talked about that kind of being a gut check win for you guys after the loss and the short turnaround, and there was a lot of chances to point fingers, and you guys didn't do that, even though, you know, it was looking for a while like you might sweep Minnesota. They come back, they take that third set, they're playing as good as they played probably all year. Did you guys feel like that? Like, hey, that was a step you took. Yeah, you lost Friday night, but that was a big win for you guys in how you rebounded?
I think so. And I think, yes, we got our first loss, but also I feel like there was a lot of good things that came out of this weekend and a lot of learning opportunities. And I feel like, especially with how many freshmen are playing, and since we haven't faced a weekend like this past weekend before, I think it was really good for us. And I think we're all very proud as a team of how we did rebound, and our coach challenged us to see how we were going to go into Minnesota and how we were going to attack it, and if we were going to be able to let go of the loss from the night before. And I feel like as a team and collectively, we did a great job of that. So I feel like that's a great kind of step to take in the right direction. And it's ultimately going to help us going into the tournament.
That's awesome. Madison, do you have one more for Lexi?
Yeah. So, you know, I feel like your team has faced a lot of adversity this year, you know, especially with only having one loss. So how do you guys bounce back from that adversity, grow from that adversity, and have such a quick turnaround in being able to approach postseason?
Yeah, I mean, all year we've kind of talked about how it's really important to win close games, and win at the end of the day, you just had to win 3 games by 2 points. And that's what our coach tells us all the time. And I feel like after this weekend, there were some games that we didn't win by 2 points. And so I think ultimately learning how we can change that, and just taking our loss and the game against Minnesota and figuring out like what we need to do better so we can win those games in the next coming weeks. And I mean, if we didn't lose, we might not have known kind of what we need to get better at. So I feel like that's just, it's a good thing. It's the pressure's kind of off our backs with that undefeated season. And so now we can just get back to playing Nebraska volleyball.
It's awesome. And with everything that comes with it, and the pressure, the privilege, there's some super cool things, but there is pressure in it, but it's got to be kind of an honor to know. It's just amazing what Coach Cook and everybody that came before you has built. I mean, you literally are a first-class program. But I want to end with this, and maybe it doesn't have much to do with the tournament, but we have so many prep athletes that watch, and every time I've talked with a college player, they always say, hey, I'm so much more than a volleyball player. Like, that's such a small part of what I am. Two things. One, what's something Alexi Rodriguez is that's a lot more than her on the court? And two, mental health training wise, or positive mental health. Give our younger viewers out there something, a tip that they can do to keep a positive mental health.
Okay, so first I would say I am just a friend, a sister, a daughter. I think that for me, the people in my life are so important to me. And I feel like the people who are closest to me know me as Lexi, and they know me as way more than a volleyball player. And so I feel like that's something that's always been really important to me, is just my friends, my family, and just the connections I have with the people around me. And then I would say for like mental toughness and just training, like training that, I would say we do a lot with like visualizing and meditation and just kind of calming ourselves down, because there is a lot of stress and there can be anxiety and just all that stuff. And so I feel like when you just connect with yourself more, slow your brain down, it can help. And then I've also found that journaling really helps for me, and just kind of reflecting on whether it's a practice or a game or just life in general, and getting to reflect on that and then just write it down and leave it in the past. That way you can kind of focus on the next day, the next game, whatever it is. I feel like that's been very helpful for me.
It's awesome. Well, look, so we're gonna let you go, and when we heard you said yes, I couldn't even believe it, because I can't imagine how busy you are. So you are our MVP, okay, of this, for taking this time. Thank you so much. Our viewers are just gonna love it, and you've earned that respect. And hope you have a deep run. I'm from South Dakota. We call Bergen the goat here. So everybody, yeah. So she is kind of the reason we're doing all this, is following her career. So we have extra special motivation to watch you guys, and please tell her hello. But you guys just seem like a fun group, and have a great run. And thank you so much for taking time.
Yes. Thank you both for having me.
Yep. Lexi Rodriguez, everybody, 2-time All-American. Wow, Maddie, for Madison, sorry, for her to do that. That speaks a lot, because there's definitely a lot bigger publications out there wanting her time. So how cool was that to talk with her?
I'm like deep down fangirling right now.
I'm like 50-year-old fan person. I'm like, I love, but it's just her attitude, right? Let's bring Zach, would you bring Katie and Abby back in and finish this up? I mean, we do 3 whole episodes, I think, on her, that she comes in right away, she's giggling, and I'm like, I hope when you see people, right, and you put them, so you hope they're like that off the court, right? And
right.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. It's like, she's probably lucky we didn't ask for autographs, I guess. So
I know.
but that was good. So thank you so much. But they're right. I saw some pictures of couple of our followers who we've interviewed before, and they were at the match last night, and they put pictures. They usually, I think they do a pretty good job of blocking fans off, but Minnesota let them hang around last night, and the Nebraska girl kind of got mobbed, I think, by fans for autographs and pictures. But they are like, it's crazy, and that's where the sport's going. The sport's going where little girls look up to these guys like that, and they are such role models. So how cool was that? But let's bring in, as we have everybody back, let's go through each bracket. Here's what I want. I want our final 4 predictions out of each bracket, and if we can see a big upset, so putting y'all on the spot. I put my foot in my mouth all the time, so people are used to it, but now they can direct their comments at you if they don't like it. But let's start with the Lincoln Regional. Man, you have the number 1 team all year. Take a chance take a look and give me one potential upset and your Final Four pick. Does anybody want to be brave and go first?
I guess I'll go.
Right.
I personally think that Nebraska will get through this region. Obviously, Kentucky is a super strong team, and they very well could give Nebraska a run for their money. Nebraska did beat them already, but they're definitely on a high right now. Huge win streak, like we had talked about. But again, they have to play Arkansas. There's just so many talented teams nowadays in volleyball that there's no guarantee of who makes it out. But I think in this one, I think Nebraska will make it out of this region.
All right, Abby, do you have, if you look at one, is there a first round matchup that looks, or even a second round matchup potentially that you could see an upset?
Well, being from Gainesville, Florida, I would like to see Florida. I mean, that Florida Georgia Tech game is going to be good, but I definitely do think Georgia Tech could win that game, which would technically be an upset. But yeah, that's the biggest one that stands out to me. And then the FSU Arkansas one could potentially be pretty interesting as well.
Absolutely. Katie, what about you? Final Four and then upset potential.
My Final Four pick will be Nebraska. I think the Elite Eight match will be Kentucky-Nebraska. I think it will be a really good match. I think Reagan Rutherford will probably have a heyday. With a block in Nebraska, it's going to be pretty hard. In terms of upsets, I could see TCU going over Florida State in the first round, and then possibly over Arkansas if they go ahead. I think if they're on, they're on. I think it really depends on the passing.
Yep. And that's another team on the rise for sure that's had a good year in a tough conference. Awesome. So Madison, what about you? Final Four and upset?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with the majority. I think my Final Four pick will be Nebraska. I just think that they've proved themselves throughout the whole season, and I just think they're a really strong team, and they have a very strong culture, and I just see them coming out on top. And then my potential upset would be Florida State and Arkansas. I just think that's going to be such a good game if they both get through this first round. And I honestly think it could go either way. I think both teams are talented with really strong outside hitters. So I think that it would definitely be a close game to watch and a potential upset for Florida State.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to echo everybody. I will take Nebraska. I do think, like Katie said, that it's going to be Nebraska, Kentucky, and Kentucky has come so far. I do not think that would be a sweep. But I think in the end, just a little bit more offensive firepower for them. But again, I think Rutherford is the key. And Emma Grome, who I talked a lot about, that would be classic setter matchup, I think, with her and Bergen at setters. But I'm going to go with Nebraska. And my two, I think Florida Gulf Coast, for some reason, I've been feeling there. And I also like looking at TCU. I think the bottom half of that bracket on Kentucky side is going to get shook up a little bit. So we all agree on Nebraska. Let's move on to the next big one. I think we're going to have a little disagreement on this next one. So let's go to the Pitt region, the Pittsburgh region, if we can next. We've got number 1 seed Pitt, number 2 Louisville. You got Minnesota, right? A lot of people Cinderella, I think. You got USC, Skylar Fields. So let's start this time. Katie, you get to start. And I know your alma mater's in there, but still you get to start. Final Four pick and upset pick.
My Final Four pick out of this region will be Louisville. I think it will be Pitt and Louisville in the Elite Eight match. Classic ACC rematch. It's going to be a dogfight for sure. It always is. Potential upset. I mean, based on seeding, I will say Minnesota over Utah State is an upset. I mean, I always obviously root for the Gophers, but I think other than that, I could see Pepperdine over Dayton. Yeah. Even though Dayton is very gritty, in defense, and I want to see them against Washington State. But we'll see. It's a fun region.
This is a fun region for sure. So Madison, you're next.
I'm going to have to go with Pitt for my Final Four pick. I definitely agree with Katie. I think it will be Pitt and Louisville in the Elite Eight. And I mean, I'm from the ACC as well, so they've always been two top teams that have just been going at it against one another. But I think Pitt is wanting redemption for last year, so I could see them coming out as a Final Four pick. And then my potential upset would be Pepperdine over Dayton. I think Dayton has really strong serving and gritty defense, like Katie was mentioning, but I also think that Pepperdine has been a little underestimated this season, and I think that they've proved themselves to be a top contender. And so I'm actually really excited for that match to see if Pepperdine comes out on top.
If I recall, didn't Dayton take Louisville to 5 early this season in a great match? And at the time, I was scratching my head like, what the heck happened? And what happened was Dayton's pretty dang good. I think so. Okay, great, Madison. Abby, you're up.
Man, this one is so tough. Pitt and Louisville are great teams, but I think the difference maker with this one is Pitt will be hosting. So I'm going to go with Pitt in 5 sets over Louisville to make it to the Final Four. But who knows at this point, could potentially be their 3rd time playing against each other. And then for my upset pick, I know Katie had touched on Minnesota and Utah State. I wouldn't put it past Minnesota to take on Creighton and give them a run for their money as well, so that could potentially also be an upset.
Yeah, people are definitely talking about how well the Gophers are playing with that first-year staff, and now with things in the right direction. And it's just, I'd seen them early in the year, and then watching last night, the fire they're playing with was this is different energy, and they won't be at the PAB, I guess, but they still are playing very well, and they're Big Ten tested. So, oh man, I don't know. I don't know if there's 2 staffs I like more. I love the Pitt staff and connection with PK being at Louisville. Oh, this is really hard because it's 3, and I know how tough they are, and I know what rivals they are. You guys,
you have to pick.
I have to pick.
It's your show. I'm just playing.
Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? Oh man. Boy, I think I'm going to take Pittsburgh just because, again, they'll be at home, and I like the adversity they faced this year, overcoming it. But I will tell you this, I will be there. That is the region I am going to. If those 2 are both still alive, that is where I will be, is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, weekend number 2. It's great. As far as upset pick, I'm going to go on a limb. I am going to take Grand Canyon over Washington State. I also like Minnesota. And boy, I think that Creighton Minnesota rematch, if it happens, will be another great match. 5 sets last time, and we've talked about the improvement of the Gophers over the years. So that's what I'm going with. It pains me, and I hope DBK forgives me because I love their campus, I love their staff. So, but that's why we got the important job. Let's move to the next one, Stanford region. The Stanford region, or excuse me, Wisconsin will be next, the other side of the bracket. Boy, this is a good one as well. Abby, you start us off this time.
Oh man, I do think Oregon is a very, very strong team this season, but I do think I'm going to go with Wisconsin on this one, making it to the Final Four. I do think it's going to be between them and Oregon. If Purdue has a really awesome postseason, that Oregon-Purdue match could potentially be a good one as well. And then I guess upsets. I definitely think I'm going to go with Miami UNI. I think that's technically an upset, so I'm going to go with that one.
Be a great match. It's an interesting first round. Madison, why don't you go next?
I think this one is really difficult too, because I think Oregon has had a really strong couple runs in the past. But eventually I am going to have to go with Wisconsin. I just think, with their offense and their 6'2", they're just unstoppable. For sure, though, Wisconsin and Oregon in the Elite Eight. And then potential upsets, definitely the Miami game. And I've been kind of looking at Hawaii and Iowa State. I think that'll be a really interesting game as well. And I don't know. I just think Iowa State, strong team, but so is Hawaii. And so I think that those are the two games that could be an upset.
Sounds great. Katie, what about you?
All right, Final Four, it'll come down to top 2 seeds, Wisconsin and Oregon. I'm going with Oregon. I know Wisconsin's block is super physical, and they always have forehands up in front that are just in your face. But I think the speed of Oregon's offense will make the difference, and they'll be able to make as many digs as possible because they are so scrappy. So I'm picking Oregon for my Final Four. In terms of upsets, I could see Penn State over Kansas, but I could also see Marquette over Purdue. I think that'll be an interesting matchup as well.
In the second round, you're talking.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think mine would be Marquette over Purdue in that second round. Boy, that Kansas Penn State match. Well, these should be all great matches when you start getting down to the round of 32. But I'm as well. I'm all in. I'm a Matt Ulmer fan. I'm an Oregon fan. One, because I like they roll out a different jersey every single time they play. But I'm taking Oregon as well in the Final Four with the upset, even though, man, what a tough task to go to Madison and win. But I'm going to go for the Ducks on that. And so now let's move to that Stanford region. And one more time, let's take a look heading out west. And Stanford's going to be the number 1 seed. And let's see. Madison, you start us off. Can anybody take care of the Cards?
I think Texas. My Final Four is Texas. I think that they had an amazing run last year, obviously. But I don't know. I just think it's going to be really close between them and Stanford. But overall, I think Texas is going to come out on top. And then some potential upsets. I'm with UGA. I think they'll take down Arizona State. And I think UGA for me.
It's a good pick. Katie.
I'm going to go with Texas as well. I think Madison Skinner will carry them to the end. I'd love to see her and Kip matched against each other with a right side, outside classic matchup. So I'm taking Texas to the Final Four. But upsets, I'm going to have to agree with Madison with UGA, but I think also don't sleep on UCSB over Houston in the first round. They kind of snuck into the tournament, got knocked out of the Big West Conference tournament, but they got that at large for the NCAA, so they might just take it and run with that.
That's awesome. Good pick and great stat there. Abby, what about you?
To me, this one is harder than the Pitt Louisville one to me. Stanford and Texas are, I would say, 2 of my favorite teams to watch. Super talented, very similar in a way. I think if this match was at Gregory, I think Texas would win. But I'm gonna go with Stanford on this one. I think they are super talented, but it could be either one to me. But yeah, my pick is Stanford on this one. And then I think out of all of the regions, this one has the most potential upsets in the first round. You have Arizona State and Georgia. I could definitely see Georgia winning that one. UCSB and Houston. But I also don't think we should overlook Coastal Carolina from the Sun Belt either, playing against Western Kentucky. They have Jalen Stout, who is leading the country in triple doubles with 14. She's a very talented player. And then they also have Jasmine Rivest on the outside. So very talented team. So
awesome. Well, I'm gonna take Texas as well over there. I will say I think that A&M, just the rivalry portion of it, might make for a cool first round match, but I think they get through that. I think that confidence, which Texas always has, will carry them through, and I don't think it bothers them as much to maybe go on the road, and maybe playing Sanford isn't quite as much of a home court advantage as maybe like a Wisconsin or a Nebraska. And they're the defending champs. So when I saw them play earlier this year, I was extremely impressed with how physical they were. So I'm going to take Texas in the Final Four. I'm going to take Texas State over SMU in the first round match. I'm a little bit different. I like Western Kentucky not only to beat Coastal Carolina, but I also think they have a shot at beating Tennessee in round two. But it'll be great and to look at some of these matchups. So, okay, Final Four. Everybody to go through with your pick real quick. National champion. Don't go through the Final Four, but give me your pick to win it all. Madison, you're first.
Oh, great. I feel like I'm gonna have to go with Nebraska. I think that they have a lot that they have been working for, and I think that, you know, just touching back on their culture and how much they've just proved themselves this season. And I mean, they already set like a world record, so why not add a national championship on top of it?
Sounds good. Abby?
oh man, Darren, I don't know if you're gonna like this one. But I think I'm gonna go with Wisconsin, only because I mean, just at Wisconsin's best against Nebraska, I mean they were just unstoppable. Sarah Franklin put a ball down multiple times against Nebraska. That sharp angle, she was hitting it every single time, and they could not figure out how to dig it. And I just think if they can pass to target, they're the national champion to me. So,
Katie?
All right, I'm going hot take. I think if Oregon gets there, they win it. I like the speed of their offense. It's really tough to defend one like that, no matter where you are on the court. I think Nebraska's youth may get to them when they're on that big of a stage, but if anything, that would be my national championship match, Nebraska-Oregon, and I think Oregon would take it.
Yeah, I think I literally was flipping a coin between Louisville and Pitt, and so not sure, but I think the winner of that match wins it. I think Pitt's overcome a lot of adversity this year. I think that's that East Coast kind of ish mentality of being overlooked, being underrated, where, you know, nobody's talking about us. They, you know, now we've been there twice. We had to take that next step. I think they're a tough team. Nebraska extremely talented. And not that I don't think they can win it, but I think they're going to have multiple chances to win it. Also, Pitt's got a couple pretty dang good freshmen as well that haven't shown freshmen like mistakes this year. They played through it, and I'll tell you what, those athletes in Nebraska are great, but that limelight and that spotlight and all that wears on you, and it's not going to get any dimmer come Final Four. Let's think that. So I think whoever wins that ACC battle between Pitt and Louisville is going to win it all. But I do want to ask you one question as we get off, because I put this on our story the other day. You guys have followed college much deeper and longer than I have. Has there ever been a freshman class that has come in and made more of an impact, an immediate impact right away than this class? Can you remember a year where more freshmen right away at big programs stepped in? Because it's amazing what freshmen are doing this year.
Yep, 2016 Stanford, Catherine Plummer, Morgan Hens, and Fitzmaurice.
I was just about to say that.
Okay, well, that's 3. We're talking about like 25 freshmen making. I mean, go to the debate on just who would be the freshman All-American team. But yeah, you're right. That was a pretty decent freshman class. So you're saying Nebraska has to win all 4 to top that, is what you're saying?
Oh no, I think Nebraska's doing a great job, but if top, I'm all.
Well, you guys have all played the game, have played at this level, and know what it's probably like to attempt to come in as 18-year-olds and do it on the big stage. Heck, even though it was an exhibition, I'd have been petrified to 18-year-old playing in that outdoor game with 92,000 people would have about made me cry. But it's amazing, the talent and just the hype around this and what's going to keep building up. People having debates and controversies over All-American teams, all conference teams, all awards. It just it didn't have the social media impact that it, 5-6 years ago. So it's really cool. But we should go. Thank you guys for taking some time on a Sunday night. We everybody sticking around, and we'll retweet this. We are going to be in Tampa. We're going to be at practice day. We're going to have a live show. We're going to be at the AVCA Phenom event. Excited to do that. And Madison, you said this will be your first Final Four going to, correct?
Yep.
Abby, how about you? Have you been there before?
So I actually went to the one last year in Omaha, but that was my first ever time, and I could not be more excited that it's in Tampa this year. 1, because it's warmer, and 2, because I live in Florida, so it's only 2 hours away. So much easier, especially with the national championship being on a Sunday this year. I just have to drive home.
Absolutely. And Katie, you got your darn big kid job, so you ain't go. But have you been to a Final Four?
Yep, in 2016, it was in my hometown of Columbus. So right after I finished my finals, I went over there and saw those Stanford freshmen win it.
I was there as well. Little did I know that it would lead to this, but it's been a crazy ride, and we'll be definitely involved in and just the hype around all of it. And being in Tampa for a South Dakotan in December will be great. So thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. Everybody keep following us along, give us a like, and watch all of our social media throughout the tournament. So you guys have a great night, and thank you, everybody. Hey, thanks.